From the outside looking in, Kenny Lattimore and Judge Faith Jenkins seemed like the embodiment of a dream couple. Their love story played out like a modern-day fairy tale. Whether they were walking hand in hand at red carpet events or sharing sweet moments on social media, the world believed they had it all. Their smiles for the cameras appeared effortless, and they often spoke about faith, purpose, and the power of love. Fans admired their union, a gospel singer and a respected judge, both successful, mature, and grounded. They were praised for being the kind of couple others looked up to, especially in an industry where relationships rarely last. But behind those polished photos and carefully written captions was a truth that wasn't easy to see. Even early on, there were subtle signs that something wasn't quite right. Little things, moments that didn't fit the picture-perfect image they projected. Faith sometimes looked tired, even when she smiled. Kenny, always composed, seemed just a little too rehearsed, like he was playing a role rather than living in the moment. But no one questioned it. After all, who would suspect trouble in such a flawless-looking relationship? It's easy to hide behind appearances when everyone around you believes in the illusion. For Kenny and Faith, the pressure to be the ideal couple slowly became a silent burden. Their public image became more important than their private truth. And while the world watched a love story unfold, behind closed doors, a very different narrative was taking shape. One filled with tension, quiet doubts, and red flags that would soon become impossible to ignore. In the beginning, Kenny swept Faith off her feet. He was charming, attentive, and incredibly romantic. There were surprise getaways, handwritten letters, expensive gifts, and long talks that stretched into the early hours of the morning. He called her his queen, his answered prayer. He made her feel like the most important woman in the world. It felt like a fairy tale, almost too good to be true. And maybe that's because it was. Friends noticed how quickly things were moving. Just weeks into dating, Kenny was talking about marriage, building a family, and how they were destined to be together. Faith, caught up in the intensity of it all, chose to believe it was real love. After all, who wouldn't want to believe in something that felt so powerful and perfect? But what she didn't see then was that Kenny wasn't just being romantic. He was overwhelming her with affection to gain control. Every kind gesture, every passionate word was part of a pattern meant to win her trust fast and leave little room for doubt. It wasn't just love, it was strategy. And as Faith fell deeper, the real Kenny was just beginning to show himself. Behind the romance, it started with small things. Kenny would suggest which events they should attend together, what colors she should wear, or which photos were better to post online. At first, Faith thought it was just him being involved, showing care. But over time, it became clear he wanted control over everything. He didn't like surprises and didn't want her making big decisions without checking in with him first. When she accepted a speaking engagement out of state, he grew cold and distant, saying it made him feel left out. Slowly, she began to question her own choices. She stopped making plans without discussing them first. She started doubting her own judgment. On the surface, Kenny still looked like the perfect husband, but behind closed doors, his need to be in charge was changing the dynamic of their relationship. What once felt like partnership started to feel like permission-seeking. And the more Faith tried to keep the peace, the more power Kenny quietly took from her. Faith had always been a strong, independent woman. Her career was built on hard work and discipline. But after marrying Kenny, her success became a quiet source of tension. He never said it directly, but his actions made it clear. He didn't like how much attention she was getting. When she landed a major TV opportunity, he barely celebrated. When fans praised her, he'd make jokes about how fame changes people. Slowly, she realized he wasn't proud of her, he was competing with her. Instead of feeling supported, she started feeling guilty for chasing her dreams. They had more arguments, most of them starting from small things, but they always circled back to the same issue. Kenny wanted a wife who would stand behind him, not one who stood beside him in the spotlight. Faith, used to being admired for her strength, found herself shrinking just to keep the peace. And every time she dimmed her own light, she lost a little more of herself. As the months went by, Faith became quieter. Not in public, she still smiled, still posted the carefully curated couple photos, still gave graceful interviews. But privately, she was slipping away from the people who knew her best. Close friends said she stopped returning calls, she stopped going to gatherings she once loved. When asked how she was doing, she would always say, "I'm fine, just busy." But there was something in her tone that didn't match her words. Something hollow. Something tired. In interviews, she stopped speaking freely. Every answer felt rehearsed, as if she was choosing her words carefully, not out of grace, but out of fear. As the facade grew heavier to maintain, the cracks began to show. Disagreements became more frequent, often escalating behind closed doors. Faith's once bright smile began to fade, and Kenny's need for control became more suffocating. Friends and family started to take notice, but the couple continued to present a perfect image to the world. Behind the scenes, however, the weight of their hidden struggles was becoming too much to bear. Faith's silence finally broke when close friends intervened. Their perfect facade crumbled as private disputes spilled into the public eye. Interviews grew tense, and Faith's public appearances became sparse. What had been whispered rumors now stood bare, revealing the hidden cracks beneath the polished surface. The world watched as the illusion of perfection faded away, leaving only raw reality in its wake. Her words were measured, carefully chosen. When she spoke of sacrifice and growing pains, it seemed simple on the surface, but those who truly knew her saw something deeper, something unspoken. The confident, outspoken woman the world knew had become guarded and cautious. It wasn't just silence, it was secrecy. Faith wasn't just staying quiet, she was hiding. One of the most unsettling shifts came when Kenny began using Faith as a tool for control. He would quote scripture during arguments, reminding her that a wife should submit to her husband. He weaponized religion to silence her voice, to justify his dominance, and to make her feel guilty for daring to disagree. At first, Faith tried to reason with him, to express that partnership didn't mean one person leading alone. But Kenny wasn't interested in partnership, he wanted obedience. He called it spiritual leadership, but it felt more like control. The once lively woman of faith began to question her beliefs. She wondered if she was being difficult, if maybe Kenny was right. Gradually, her church attendance dwindled. She stopped posting about her spiritual journey. The very thing that had once brought her strength now filled her with confusion and shame. Kenny's words echoed louder than her own prayers, and in the name of faith, she was slowly breaking. To the outside world, they were still the perfect couple, relationship goals. But social media, as polished as it may seem, doesn't lie, not completely. Fans began noticing subtle changes, fewer pictures together, less interaction online. Faith's captions took on a different tone, almost like quiet cries for help. She wrote about healing, about protecting your peace, about walking away from what no longer serves you. Rumors began to swirl, but neither Kenny nor Faith addressed them. In interviews, they smiled, assuring everyone that all was well. But the spark was gone. Even in photos, their smiles no longer reached their eyes. The world began to see what Faith had been feeling for a long time. The fairy tale was fading. The shift became undeniable after one particular night, a charity event where Faith gave a passionate speech about independence and women finding their voice. Kenny's reaction was instant. Witnesses backstage described his expression changing the moment she stepped down from the podium. He accused her of making it about herself, of embarrassing him. They argued for hours that night. But it wasn't really about the speech, it was about control. Faith had dared to show her true self in front of the world, and Kenny couldn't take it. That night, she made a call to a friend she hadn't spoken to in months. She broke down, confessing everything: the control, the silence, the constant pressure to be someone she wasn't. For the first time, she said out loud what she had been feeling all along. She wasn't happy. She wasn't safe. Kenny agreed to go to therapy, but it quickly became clear that healing wasn't his goal, it was another performance. He charmed the therapist, spun stories that painted Faith as emotional and oversensitive. Whenever she tried to open up, he would interrupt, redirect, or make jokes. To him, it was just another stage. Faith left every session feeling more isolated, more misunderstood. The therapist eventually began to see through the facade. She gently pulled Faith aside, encouraging her to trust her instincts and keep her own space. It was a revelation. Faith stopped questioning what was wrong with her and started questioning why she was still fighting for a relationship that didn't feel like love. The final straw came when Faith was offered a major career opportunity, a national show with her name at the forefront. It was everything she had worked for. But when she told Kenny, he didn't congratulate her. He just stared and said, "So you're choosing fame over your family?" That one sentence broke the last thread. In that moment, Faith realized that no matter how much she sacrificed, her time, her voice, her peace, it would never be enough. She walked away from that conversation with tears in her eyes but a decision in her heart. She was done. There was no public announcement, no messy split, just silence. Faith stopped wearing her wedding ring, stopped posting couple photos. Slowly, her social media began to reflect her real life: solo shots, motivational quotes, peaceful moments. She quietly removed his last name from her accounts. Kenny said nothing. He neither confirmed nor denied the separation. Maybe he thought silence would protect his image, or maybe he knew deep down she wasn't coming back. Months later, Faith sat down for a personal interview, not to attack, not to expose, but to speak her truth. She talked about the signs she had ignored, the pain she carried, and the courage it took to walk away. She never mentioned Kenny by name. She didn't have to. The story was hers. Finally, she spoke for women who looked strong on the outside but were breaking on the inside. For those who needed to know that love should never come at the cost of your voice, your peace, or your purpose. Her story, once hidden behind flawless pictures, became a message of strength, a reminder that red flags aren't always loud. Sometimes, they're quiet, polite, and dressed in love.